I was watching episode 5 of season 2 of Loki the other day and I was very impressed. I'm not one of those people that will hate on the MCU nowadays, but the matter of fact is that a lot of the projects that Marvel has been slating lately, especially shows, have not been on the same level of quality as most projects in the Infinity Saga pre-Endgame. Loki is different. It's good, but it also feels very unique and artisanal, something we have never seen in Marvel before to this extent. And this really made me wonder, why, how, and is this something recreatable? There are a number of practical reasons why Loki feels and looks different, why it is different. Let's look at this sequence here, for example, and try and point out some general specificities that you wouldn't normally see in a big studio project, or especially in a Marvel series. The image itself is different, of course, which definitely is a huge factor in Loki's uniqueness. Look at how wide the shot is, how almost Wes Anderson-y, how filled with information and detail. Look at how particular the lighting is. This season was generally going for a colder, more 1950s look, while season 1 was going for a warmer 70s look, both of which are enhanced and highlighted through a fantastic color grade. The look is also very, very grainy. I think this looks amazing, and this is definitely very unusual for a project of this scale and also adds a very lovely auteur feel. Listen to the sound, too. How prominent Loki's footsteps are, how rich the silence is, how detailed the design is, even for a minimalistic moment like this, and how all of this works coherently with the picture. When talking technical specificities, we should also mention the sets, which are really incredible in Loki. They're crafted very well. Yes, this is something I haven't seen much of in the MCU lately, to be honest, but they're also very unique on their own, as they do reflect a 1950s, 1970s look, but they're also very futuristic and somewhat magical. And of course, I must briefly mention the CGI in this series, which is once again fantastic and levels above what we've seen recently in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. One reason might be because Loki isn't actually incredibly CGI heavy compared to some other Marvel projects, and this probably allowed for the artists to really hone in and master those effects. Whatever it is, it works, and scenes like this really shine. I think it's also interesting that the camera work, color, and sound come together to create something familiar, a nostalgic look of the past, while things like production design and music create a more modernistic and superhero-like feel to the project. In combination, those two things create a very particular and interesting aesthetic. Something that struck me about the show is how strongly it follows the oldest rule in the book: show, don't tell. This is particularly difficult for a series like Loki. I'll get into the details of why this is so later, but the fact is that the show bravely allows the story to unfold without too much interference. I also love how the showrunners move the story and action to develop through the actors specifically and not around them. Cinematographer Autumn Durald Arkapaw spoke in an interview about the 3-minute action scene in episode Lamentis and how the blocking of the scene was constantly adapted around Tom Hiddleston specifically in order to showcase the character of Loki best in that moment. Or take a look at this scene, which is a fantastic example of show don't tell and of using the actors appropriately. Actress Sofia Di Martino is left to simply sit on a couch, and the story of the character, the context of her story, her present feelings and worries about what's ahead is told through acting and only acting. In continuation, the scene gives us vital plot information. This is done incredibly stylistically and artistically, and by the way is just awesome. And this is done through image and music only, as that is enough. All these things come together, along with fantastic writing and directing, of course, to create a coherent project that knows what it is, what it wants, and where it's going. That's easier said than done, of course, because no film or series is ever made with intention of being anything but absolutely amazing and doing exactly all those things, knowing what it is, what it wants, and where it's going. Almost every project is intended to be artistic and, to say simply, great, but not all succeed. And I think the key, I've experienced some of this myself, is in the details. It's all those little things, the things that filmmakers sometimes tend to brush off as they might not matter just that much. Well, those things actually make a bad project good and a good project great. The catch here is that one person can't care about all the details, which means that every person needs to care about some details of their own. And I think that's definitely the case with Loki. There is a deep sense of care here from the entire cast and crew for this entire show. When every department cares about doing the best they can, then every department will do the best they can, which will make the project the best it can be. For example, production designer Kasra Farahani fought the studio to allow them to construct larger sets with ceilings, as she deemed it necessary for the story. Cinematographer Isaac Bauman wrote a 700-page document with images and inspiration for the show before it even began shooting. Or the fact that the crew and cast rehearsed for 2 weeks before filming. This is something very unusual for a show of this caliber and size. All these things prove a great care about the series from all involved. And it shows. And of course, story is king. You can't have something unique without a unique story, and Loki's story is undoubtedly unique to say the least. I will not get into specifics here as that might take a whole day. It's a very complicated series actually, but I'd like to point out some particular questions that arise from making a show like this. These are questions that the writers, directors, and showrunners had to deal with, and these are questions that showcase how really one of a kind what we're watching is. For example, how do you set stakes about a place that doesn't exist? How do you set stakes about a world when we know there are infinite further versions of that world? How do you set individual character development within all of that? How do you deal with time travel? How do you deal with time travel and space travel at the same time to multiple characters and multiple versions of all those characters? How do you do all of this by not becoming overly expositional but still being clear enough to all viewers? The fact that Loki not only faces these issues and many more actually, but manages to resolve them and create a coherent story through them, now that's hell of impressive. Now, I did not intend for this essay to become a basically positive only review of the show, but as I was researching and writing, I really felt a deep sense of respect for Loki. The fact that this series exists is a miracle of its own. The fact that the team behind the show is successfully creating something so complex and deeply artistic on such a large scale is commendable. I hope that Loki does for Marvel what Eternals maybe aimed to do but didn't quite succeed. And I hope that when Marvel sees the success and critical appeal for Loki, they might push the MCU in a more artist-focused direction. Thank you so much for watching this essay, guys. I really do appreciate it. If you've enjoyed it, please make sure to like below and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all. I love you all.